This is section 2 of the sin offering section. And here too, we're not talking about the sin offering of an individual, but rather let's read and understand. Vim kol adat Yisrael, I'm reading Pasuk Yud Gimel, please follow, verse 13. Vim kol adat Yisrael yishku. As we explained before, Adat Yisrael is the high court, the Beit Din Gadol of the Sanhedrin of 71 members, 70 plus 1, like 70 plus Moshe Rabbeinu of that time. Okay? In other words, they're the ones that are entrusted by the community of Israel. All the spiritual duties of Torah and instruction are entrusted to this body called the Sanhedrin, called in the language of the Chumash, Kol Adat Yisrael. Adat Yisrael, the Sanhedrin. Yishku, they made an error. V'ne'elam davar, and the matter was hidden. Of course, we're talking about a matter of karet. As we said in our former shur, how many kritot are there in the Torah? 36 kritot. We're talking about any one of the 36 averot of kritot. They made a mistake. They didn't notice something in their instruction. And then what happened? This matter was hidden. Me'einei kahal, the tzibor. The tzibor. And a question we're going to have to raise is the following. Who did the error?
Sanhedrin. Who did the?
I asked the word did.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
The kahal. What determines a kahal? Do we always mean on absolute terms, everyone in the Jewish people did this thing? When we use the word kahal, what do you think it means? In many cases, in the Torah, a multitude, the many. What is the word many? Another word for many? Majority. Rove. In Hebrew, the rove, the majority.
Oh, this is not, sorry, I mean like from Arab, that's why I say Arab.
So we're talking here about the majority. A majority of the kahal. It doesn't mean, the Torah doesn't often mean in absolute standards that every one of the kahal did the sin. No, it doesn't mean that. No, it doesn't mean that whatsoever. Rather, a majority. A majority of who? Of the Jews. Where are they living? What happens if you have 10 Jews in Israel and 3 million in Brooklyn?
No good.
Do you hear the question?
Right. I don't know the answer. I don't know.
How do we count for this halacha that a majority of the kahal went out and sinned based on the psak halacha of the Sanhedrin? Remember? We have two concepts I want you to please know and understand. Shigigat hora'ah, that leads to shigigat, next word? Maaseh. I repeat. There's a shigigat hora'ah. There was an instruction done by the court in what way? Unintentional. Instruction. Psak halacha, hora'ah, lehorot, moreh. What did that lead to? Shigigat, repeat the term? Maaseh. Who did the maaseh unintentionally? The people. In the language of the Torah, the kahal. And we saying kahal means rove hakal, a majority. Listen to this. Masechet Horayot, one of our great tractates, that talks about the instructions of the Sanhedrin that become mistakes. Page 3, side 1. Rabbi Asi, do you know how you calculate a majority of the kahal? Listen to the next 5 words. Halech acharei yoshvei eretz Yisrael. I repeat. Halech acharei yoshvei eretz Yisrael. Do you know who only you take into account? The Jews living in Israel and not, fill in the missing words? The Jews living in Brooklyn. But there's so many yeshivot there. I know, but it doesn't count. But there's so many shtiblach there. I know, but it doesn't count. They have so many glad kosher rest. I know, but it doesn't count. The Syrian community, the Russian community, the Bukhari community in Ocean Parkway.
Right.
It doesn't count. Who says so? It's not Zionist propaganda here. This is Talmud. Ravasi. Listen, why? Mishnah Mesechet Bechorot. the Rambam's famous commentary, Maimonides, his commentary to a Mishnah. There in chapter 4, this is not my learning, these are learnings by our great rabbis that I learned from them. This is a well-known thing as part of Torah Eretz Yisrael. This has to blow your mind. The Rambam explains in a Mishnah, in a tractate called Bechorot, chapter 4, why is the Kahal only significant in Eretz Yisrael? He says, and I'm quoting in Hebrew, Lefi shebnei Yisrael heim nikraim Kahal. Only the children of Israel, meaning in the land of Israel, are called a Kahal. Vafilu hayu, and even if they were, I'm adding in parentheses, rak, which means only, asara yechidim. Even if in Eretz Yisrael there were only asara yechidim. 10 Jews, a minion living in Eretz Yisrael. And the rest of the Jews are living in the globe. And the globe is everywhere else. Ein choshashim lemisha zulatam bechutz laaretz. We don't take into account others that are living in chutz laaretz. Wow. For this halacha, the error or mistake of the Adat Yisrael, the Sanhedrin, and they made a hora'ah, an instruction, a psak halacha. They didn't notice something. And they instructed the tzibur that this is allowed to do. And the MS is, the truth is what? It's not allowed to do. Not only not allowed to do, but what type of violation is it? It's a karet violation. And then the Jews in Eretz Yisrael, a majority of them, what did they do?
They did it.
The asu. A majority of the Jews did it. Now, I want everyone to read in the next pasuk, pasuk 14. V'noda chatat. The sin offering became known later. Asher chatu, that they sinned on, and was they? Who is they? The people that sinned, the majority of the Jews. By the way, who did not do the sin?
The minority of the people?
Who?
The Sanhedrin.
The Sanhedrin didn't do the sin. A majority of the people did the sin. Who's going to bring the atonement? Let's read. Pasuk Tedvav, in the middle of the 14. V'krivu hakahal.
The community.
Beautiful. Par ben bakar lechatat ve'ivioto lifnei oel. I want to stop here because afterwards it's almost repetition that all the said parts to be brought on the altar, like the first one, the Kohen Mashiach will be done, the sprinkling of blood inside the Oel Moed in the Kodesh, just like when the Kohen Mashiach did it, and the sprinkling of blood on the horns of the, which one? The Mizbach HaKtoret will be done just like the Kohen Mashiach one, and also the burning of food of all the other parts there. Gentlemen, what is the great chidush novelty here? Who did the psak halacha? The Sanhedrin. Who did the actual sinning? The people. So, one second. I'm sorry. No. Here in verse 15, I want to bring to I made a mistake in verse 14. When it says Vikrivu hakahal, who's the kal we said? So you thought it would be, you thought the word here hakal is inverse. I'm sorry. It's not like we explained in the beginning of the section. It's a little confusing. Here are the kals talking about the Sanhedrin themselves. The Sanhedrin themselves, they are the ones that are going to be bringing this korban, in spite of the fact that who did the violation? The kahal, the community.
All right, because in the next verse it says the elders.
Where do you see it, sir?
Yes, 15.
15.
Let's see. V'samchu ziknei eidat yedem harosh hapar. Right. The ziknei eidah, the elders of the eidah. The eidah are the Sanhedrin. Very good. The 71. So what's the novelty here? Who can explain why? The novelty is, who did not do the sinning actually? The Sanhedrin. Who's bringing the kapara? Why?
Because they're responsible. They take full responsibility of what just happened.
Very good. When you are a public leader, a rabbinical leader, Talmudic leader, and you're instructing others, you have to be so careful to think, contemplate. Maybe you didn't analyze this, maybe you didn't analyze that. Don't be quick off the gun. Think, contemplate, take it slow. And if you're making an error, wow, you're multiplying the sin because so many people are listening and doing according to you. So here we have a tremendous novelty that in spite of the fact that they did not do it, they didn't do the action, but rather the others doing the action, they must bring it. 1 second. That's one meaning. That's one meaning. But there's another meaning you should know. I want to read Rav Hirsch what he says because he brings the other way around. The nation, not the Beit Din HaGadol, has to provide the other way around. The other way around. That the kahal here is like we explained it in the first time. The nation, not the Beit Din HaGadol, has to provide the offering for the atonement of the Beit Din. Okay? Here the nation appears in truth as one organized body. The Beit Din HaGadol is the intelligent soul of the national body. Okay? The Einei Kahal, the nation, provides the par for its Beit Din, and it admonishes itself and them that is not to hold itself in service of God as a par. And most significantly, the nation has to appear here in a 12-membered unity. Where is there 12 members? Where does he see 12 members? It could be Ziknei Ha'edah, could mean 12 members or elders of the community, not the Beit Din. So there's a double meaning here. It's in accordance with this idea that this national offering, brought to atone for a national sin caused by the error of the national intelligence, not the FBI, the Beit Din, the Sanhedrin, okay, has to consist not of one par. How many parim are brought? Is there one par brought here? Okay. There's another matter when they're bringing others. So, gentlemen, there are two. If to my understanding, hopefully I'm not making a mistake in the understanding here. There are two ways to understand it: who's bringing it, and we can understand well if the people said they should bring the sin offering, even though it was an error, and even though it wasn't that their initiative, it was the psak. Or we can say that the Sanhedrin should bring it, and the lacking of the understanding there is that they didn't do the sin. But sometimes dibur, speech, is like action. Very rare do we say dibur is like action, but some of you know we have several mitzvot that are consisting of dibur. For instance, the reading of the Shema. Okay, it's a reading, and it's like an action. Any other mitzvot? That there are mitzvot that are called reading. In the Sotah section, reading. In the Nazir section, there's a reading. In the Bikurim, there's a reading to read the section of Bikurim. So there are times that there's a dibur that could be the understanding, maybe, I'm not sure, to give a sense of doing. So I think we, as students of Torah, can learn from here that we have to be very careful of our words. Not only have to be careful of our actions, but very careful of our words, what we say, because words can create a situation. Words have power. The Jewish people really believe that words have power, because we believe that we pray to God. Our learning of Torah, pronouncing the words, has a lot of power. And we believe that I can take something that has no holiness whatsoever, and I can create it, and I can make this holy. And now it's to be sent to the Beit HaMikdash to use in the holy temple. I can take something mundane, material, and make it hekdesh. I can say this is now kodesh. So you and I cannot use it. It has to be sent to the, God willing, the holy temple, and it's going to be built speedily in our days. Amen. Right? That's what we hope. So we have to be very careful what we're saying and learning here. You should know that all these halachot that we're learning from this chumash are brought in the Gemara. And if you want to learn where they're brought in the Rambam, one of the 14 books of the Rambam is called
The nation?
Korbanot.
Okay.
And in the book of Korbanot, we have the laws of shgagot, errors, mistakes. And here, in chapter 13, the Rambam talks about the Sanhedrin. When they make a mistake in instruction, they are not part of the majority of Jews for the minyan of counting Jews. No, we don't count them. We count the others that did the sin. And if a majority of Jews in Eretz Yisrael did a sin according to this, then they will have this korban. If it's not a majority of Jews, then we don't have the korban. Have a nice day, gentlemen.